Hey everyone, it's Adrian from the Pageant Project with you. My next guest is Madison Hunt. She's a 23-year-old licensed esthetician and professional hair and makeup artist based in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee. She launched her beauty business at just 18 years old, driven by a passion for helping women feel confident in their own skin. Beyond the glam, Madison is a proud title holder of International United Miss Tennessee and the founder of Crowned for Change, a mental health advocacy initiative dedicated to ending the stigma, especially within the pageant community. Having personally battled anxiety and PTSD after a traumatic childhood before being adopted at 2 years old and a life-changing ATV accident at age 12, Madison uses her platform to empower others through vulnerability, sisterhood, and storytelling. Well, Madison, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. I think first things first, do you want to tell the people watching how you got involved in pageantry to begin with? And then we'll go a little bit into the RUM system because I don't know if you're the first person I've interviewed from the RUM system, but
hmm
I'm certainly not super familiar with it. So how did you get into pageantry? And then tell us a bit more about the RUM system.
Yes, so my mom, when she adopted me, I was very, very shy, no self-confidence, none of that. And she actually put me in pageants to kind of help build my confidence and just let me break out of my shell a little bit. And I started doing them whenever I was 9 years old, and I've just loved it ever since.
So you've had a few years experience in pageantry then. Tell us a little bit more about the IUM system in particular. Obviously, you got the lovely sash across your
Mhm.
chest. So what drew you to the IUM system?
What really drew me to the IUM system is just like the close-knit family feel that it has, and it's just rooted in community involvement and sisterhood. And I just really felt like it like aligned with my own personal values as a person, and that's really what drew me to IUM.
Am I right in saying you're competing for the national title in July?
So it is actually international. There will be other
International.
girls from like all over the world. We have people coming from the United Kingdom, Australia, just everywhere.
Wow, so how many girls are going to be competing? Do you have any idea?
So in my division, I think there's not too many, just because a lot of it is appointed titles. My title I actually competed at the state pageant for, but a lot of them are appointed. And I think there's only like 13 other girls in my group, so not too many.
That, that's still a fairly large group. I mean,
hmm
how are the nerves at this stage? I mean, it's what I'm just looking at the date. It's a couple of weeks until July, maybe give or take. How are the nerves at this point?
Getting a little bit nervous leading up to it, but it's just like it's crunch time now. Like everything's just having to get everything done and all of that. But I'm feeling very prepared and just at peace going into it, so I'm very excited about it.
I think that's a good place to be, feeling at peace rather
hmm
than feeling tumultuous and at turmoil.
yeah.
Can you give the people watching a sense of what your pageant prep looks like? Because I think everyone's a little bit different. So, what have you been doing to prepare for the international?
One thing that's really helped me has been my coach, Brandy Jo Middleton. She's actually located in Tennessee where I live, but she's like in the Memphis area, I think. She has helped me tremendously because with IUM we have an on-stage introduction speech, so it's more like a TED Talk style.
Right.
And I don't have a problem with talking in front of people. I just don't like bragging on myself necessarily. But she was like, you really have to open up and tell people these things about yourself because people want to know them. It's not being boastful if it's like actual good stuff about yourself. So that's one thing that I've really had to realize and kind of let go of was it's not boastful. It's just sharing all of your good work that you've done and just all of the good attributes about yourself.
I certainly can understand where you're coming from. I mean, as you know, I get people to submit a bio before they book in with me. And
hmm
sometimes I look at those bios and resumes, and it's just exhausting looking at it because you guys have achieved so much. This introduction that you have to give, your TED talk, how long is it?
It's like a 45-second or less speech. And mine that I have right now, it's at like 50 something seconds. So we've been trying to work on like pacing it to get it to be like a little bit shorter just because they have the opportunity to deduct points off if it goes a little bit over the time limit if they want to. It's just up to their personal discretion. So it's a little under a minute.
Thought for a second you were going to say 45 minutes.
No, I would be exhausted. There's no
I don't
way.
know. Like, I would find the 45 minutes easier than the 45 seconds, only because I wouldn't know how to. I mean, I wouldn't know how to introduce myself in 45 seconds. I mean, you said yours is at 50 at the
Mhm.
moment. Is there any possibility that you can just speak really quickly and then get it out in 45 seconds?
Well, I already feel like I'm speaking so fast as it is. Like we were laughing because I was like, I feel like I'm not even having time to breathe, like in between each sentence. And she was like, it's completely okay. Just, calm down, like take your time. Like if you go a little bit over, that's completely fine too.
Yeah, that's a cool point of difference. I like the idea that there's an introduction. Can we go
Hmm.
into going back to the bio? There's obviously you've got a quite a story, a life story, starting at a very young age. So as
Hmm.
you already pointed out, you said you were adopted at the age of 2. But you've had quite a journey leading you to the point where you're at now, I think, having read the bio, in terms of
Hmm.
what you're passionate about, what you're advocating for. This is not something you're doing just because it looks good. This is something that's obviously deeply personal to you. So, and whatever details you want to go into and whatever you don't, that's okay. I'm sensitive to that. But why don't you take us back to your early childhood and some of the things that you've had to make it through?
I was actually taken away from my parents at the age of 2, and our biological grandmother got custody of us. And it's a really funny story because when we still lived with our parents, I have 3 other siblings. Um, my family that adopted me, one of them was our babysitter while we still lived with our biological parents, and I got really attached to her. And my mom that adopted me, that was her mom, so she ended up becoming my mama, is what I called her. And she was just my best friend from the absolute beginning. She passed away whenever I was 16 years old, but she was literally my person from the beginning and was always there for me. And so I took it really, really hard when she passed away. But I forgot what I was saying. I lost my train of thought.
I mean, it
Um,
must have been a fairly traumatic time. I mean, one of my earliest memories is at the age of 2, but it was my
mhm,
first violin lesson because I started playing when I was 2. You said you
mhm.
had 3 other siblings. I mean, can you remember what it was like at that young age, being taken away from your parents?
I don't remember a lot from that, but I do remember because my biological mom, she was allowed visitation custody, like not custody, but visitation rights of us. And that would be like every other weekend, but it would have to be like under a supervised manner until she worked up to where she could see us like unsupervised. And I just remember that very vaguely, like being able to go visit with her and everything. But I've always had a good relationship with my biological siblings, thankfully. My grandmother and my mom that adopted me made sure that we were always connected. So we always spent birthdays together, holidays, everything. So I'm very grateful for that.
Sounds like from a potentially bad situation, the best maybe came out from it. I interviewed someone also in America. I think she was born in Texas, and she wasn't removed from her parents. Both her parents actually died when she was fairly
Hmm.
young, and the family that she was adopted into was abusive, and so she had to
Oh.
then move to the other side of the country. To I think it was with her grandparents as well, but your siblings, I assume they're older than yourself because you were only 2 at the time you were removed.
We are actually all 18 months apart in age, so we're very close in age. I have 2 older brothers and then a younger sister, and my oldest brother, he is 26, and then I'm 23, so we're like all very, very close in age.
Then after that, you've also written about a life-changing ATV accident at age 12. I
Mhm.
mean, obviously you've had anything other than an ordinary childhood. When you say ATV, is that one of those buggies that I see people riding around in, the all-terrain vehicles, or is it something else?
Mhm. Yes, so it was like a Polaris Razor, and I was actually at my biological mother's house for visitation when that ATV accident happened. So,
What happened? I mean, I've seen people describe them as being very dangerous. I've never ridden one myself, frankly. I think I've been too scared because everyone says they're dangerous.
mhm.
But I mean, do you remember the details of what happened?
Yes, I was actually riding it with my step siblings, and we were going around this curb, this very sharp curb, and I was telling them, I was like, you need to slow down, and they didn't, and they took the curb too sharp, and it flipped the ATV. And I just remember it like knocking me out unconscious, and then waking up, and then just seeing like blood everywhere, and it was very, very scary, but one of the biggest things that I remember from it is literally laying down in the side of the woods, just praying for God to like spare my life and to save me because I was scared that I was going to die at that very moment. So it was very, very traumatic for me. And I actually had to be rushed to a children's hospital in Nashville where they had to have a plastic surgeon come in and sew together layers of muscle, tissue, and fat because it had busted my head open to my skull. And it was very, very gory and scary.
I mean, I've interviewed more than a few pageant girls who are afraid of blood, some of whom even pass out at the sight of their own blood. I was interviewing Bailey Guy, and she said as a
hmm
teenager she cut her legs shaving in the shower, saw her own blood, and then passed out in the shower. So I imagine after that you must be somewhat accustomed to the sight of blood. There must have been a lot of it.
Somewhat. I'm still like I still have a weak stomach when it comes to stuff like that. Like I don't like traumatic stuff or blood or anything like that. It makes me nauseous still, but it's definitely something that I wouldn't think would be on my bingo card, but it was.
Fair enough. What was a recovery like for yourself as a 12-year-old girl? I mean, I've worked with a lot of teenage girls. I was a head coach, head tennis coach at an all-girls school. And to me, that sort of age, 12 going into your teens, it's very tricky for a young woman because you're not really a girl anymore. You're becoming a woman.
hmm
Your body is changing. You're discovering who you are, maybe what you want to do in life, all those things. Maybe you have your first crush or whatever it is. And here you are laid up in hospital having to have a plastic surgery, basically put your face back together. That can't have been easy.
It was not, and I actually had a very severe concussion from it, so I could not go to school for over a month. My doctor didn't want me reading, writing, watching television, getting on my phone, none of that, because he basically said that my brain had to have time to fully heal to get back to normal. And that was very, very hard for me. I think that's part of what caused a lot of my PTSD from it was not being able to communicate with anybody, just pretty much being shut in a dark room for over a month and just not getting to see any of my friends or anything like that.
So you weren't even allowed people into the room to see you during that time?
No, I could, but just basically like I couldn't leave my house, like none of that. It was just like very it was hard. And it's just obviously like as a 12-year-old girl, you're used to like being around your friends, getting to talk to them, text them, hang out with them, see them at school, like all of that. And that was pretty much just taken away from me and it was very, very, very difficult.
What helped you get through that time?
Honestly, I would say a lot of prayer. My relationship with God has been like the biggest thing in my life, and it has gotten me through like all my hardships and my struggles. And honestly, I have my mama to thank for that. She was like my biggest spiritual influence in my life growing up. And that's pretty much just what's gotten me through everything so far was prayer and my relationship with God.
How long was it until you began to feel somewhat normal again? I mean, you basically you sound like you were confined to a room for a month at least, and then straight after that, I can only imagine it's not like straight back to normal life. A month and a
hmm
day afterwards. What was the recovery process like?
So when I started going back to actual school to be president and again, I remember that's kind of when my anxiety started overwhelming me, and I kind of had to start taking it like day by day. So it'd be like a half a day at school, and then seeing like how I could build up towards that. And eventually, just going back to school full time was not good for me. So I had to start homeschooling in seventh grade after the ATV accident, and I did it for a couple of years, and then I moved to a separate school to kind of just get like a fresh start with new teachers, new students, just to see if that would like help me just being in a new environment. And it did help a lot, honestly. But it was very hard just getting like started back after I felt like I had missed so much and that I was almost like a different person in a way. So it was difficult to kind of adapt to.
You describe what that sort of period of time was like when you recovered from the ATV accident. You begun the homeschooling, and then I think you said there was a couple of years, and then you started at a new school, fresh start. I've interviewed quite a few people around the topic of mental health, specifically women.
hmm
I think when it comes to something like depression, people have some understanding of it if they haven't been through it, because I think everyone's been sad at times. Not to say that depression and sad are the same thing, but I found that anxiety is a harder one for people to understand if they haven't had it. I interviewed
hmm
a good friend of mine, a pageant girl. Outwardly, she seems very confident, well spoken, but she was dealing with severe anxiety behind the scenes, having full blown panic attacks, having to lock herself
hmm
in the bathroom. And I think the hardest part for her was that there wasn't a specific reason why. And so I
hmm
think very often when someone says they have anxiety or PTSD or both, that people don't really understand it. So can you just describe what that period of time was like for yourself in dealing with the anxiety?
Mine was kind of like you said, like I didn't really have like a reason why, other than like the trauma and stuff that I had experienced, but it would literally just hit me out of nowhere. My pulse would be like 150, like it was bad. And it got to the point to where like I felt like I couldn't eat nothing, I couldn't drink nothing. I was locking myself in the house pretty much like you said that she did. And I had actually lost down to 93 pounds at one time because I just could not eat. And my mom actually took me to an ear, nose, and throat specialist, and they ran a scope down my throat because I kept telling her, I was like, I feel like I'm choking. Like, I just feel like my airway is cut off. And they figured out that my vocal cords constrict whenever I'm having anxiety attacks. And it's literally cutting off my airway. So that was very hard to navigate. But it's a very like overwhelming feeling. Like you just feel like you have no control over anything at all. So that's really how it was for me.
And how did you get through that? I mean, that sounds awful. I mean, being unable to breathe is not is not a
hmm
pleasant sensation for anyone. And then as a young woman, not being able to eat or drink or keep anything down makes it even tougher. So, how did you get through that time?
I actually started seeing a therapist, which is one of the biggest things that helped me. She was tremendous. Like she helped me amazingly. But she taught me a bunch of grounding techniques, and that's just kind of how you distract your mind from what's going on with like your anxiety and stuff. And it would be like five things you can see, four things you can feel, three things you can touch, like just counting down from five, four, three, two, one. And by the
Right.
time you get to one, your mind is distracted and usually calmed down by then. So a lot of the grounding techniques are what helped me kind of cope with it, and my therapist for sure.
Do you remember how you were connected with your therapist? I asked this because my friend who I was telling you about, she initially was connected with one therapist and that didn't turn out well at all. She
Hmm.
said she felt that made it worse. And she was lucky because she actually booked in with a second therapist just because she thought, why not? And she found the second therapist very helpful. But I found from working with a lot of people in mental health that finding a good therapist can be very, very tricky. And if you don't
Hmm.
find a good one, sometimes you don't go to look for a second one because it can be quite traumatizing when you open up to
Hmm.
someone who's supposed to help you and they don't. So, in terms of how you were able to find a therapist who was so helpful for you, was that a bit of luck, a bit of grace, or was there a specific way that you can be connected to someone who's really going to be in your corner, so to speak?
So honestly, I think whenever my mom was trying to find me a therapist to go to, I think it was somewhere that my pediatrician had recommended,
Right.
and she had reached out to them, and I think my pediatrician might have sent them like even like a referral or something. But it actually took me, like I had been to several different ones before I found one that actually helped me and worked for me. And like you said, it is hard, like opening up and telling so many people your story just to have to go and tell somebody else the same thing.
Mm.
And just being able to trust that person, like with your story and what you have going on too.
I mean, you mentioned that you went to see a therapist. I know that you are passionate about battling the stigma surrounding mental
Hmm.
health, and I think it's getting better, at least over here in Australia. I think we have a ways
Hmm.
to go yet. But did you battle with any stigma yourself in terms of telling people what you'd been through or the fact that you'd been through a therapist?
Yes, actually, even as like a child that grew up doing pageants and stuff, a lot of times people would ask my mom, they were like, how does she have anxiety and all of this, but she can get on stage and do pageants and stuff? And my mom was just like, she's just, I guess, a different person on stage. Like it really, like it helps her, like, because it's challenging her anxiety, it's challenging like her nervousness and making her put herself out there. And I think like that's a really big stigma is girls in pageantry, people don't think that they can have anxiety or that they're always put together and just like this pretty perfect face rather than like an
Mm.
actual human being that's going through stuff.
Can you explain to people watching that sort of I don't think it comes with any ill intent, but they look at someone who's on stage, walking around, looking glam, looking confident, sometimes in a swimsuit, and they go, that girl can't possibly be dealing with any confidence issues, imposter issues, anxiety, etc., etc. She couldn't possibly be depressed. Yet you and I both know that's obviously not the case. Just because you see the
Hmm.
outside doesn't mean you see what's going on in the inside. But specifically, how is it that if you have anxiety, that you would still want to be up on stage? Because obviously it helped you or you enjoyed it. But can you explain that sort of confusion that I think a lot of people will have?
Yeah, so for me personally, being in pageants and being on stage helped me with my anxiety because it challenged me. And that's part of healing. You have to challenge yourself, you have to push yourself, and you have to put yourself out there because it's just like a scientific fact that, you help your anxiety and your mental state just by forcing yourself to do stuff that you otherwise wouldn't normally do. And it kind of just, I don't know, it makes you feel resilient, I guess, and kind of gives you like a sense of perseverance because you're not labeling yourself for what you've been through, but it's for what you can do and continue to do.
How much to this day is it still an ongoing process of healing? Because again, from my experience, I don't think anyone ever is just fixed. Not that you were broken to begin
Hmm.
with, but I always look at it as an ongoing process. And at various times it's easier, and then sometimes it can get a lot harder and for no obvious reason. But in your case, is it a bit more smooth sailing these days, or is it still an ongoing process of day by day?
Obviously, with mental health, it is like a day by day journey, but I will definitely say my personal journey is a lot better now than it was several years ago. And I talk about that all the time, like just how far I've come with my mental health journey and being able to talk about it with others and to help them even with their own personal battles. And I'm just very proud to say that I have improved with my mental health battles and that it's nowhere near like what it was a few years ago, for sure.
I'm glad to hear that. Would you say that pageantry in your case was part of that healing process?
I definitely think that it was. Pageants gave me so much in my life. They have given me my two best friends that I have now. They've given me public speaking skills, self confidence, all of the things that people don't see with pageants being like an outsider looking in. They have given me, and I'm very, very grateful for that because otherwise I probably wouldn't be having this interview with you right now.
Have you ever stopped to think who you might have been if it hadn't been for pageants in your life?
I honestly probably would not even have the job that I have now because pageants are what gave me my passion for the job that I have now and my career as a hair and makeup artist. Um, and I just probably would be a very shy, socially awkward person that couldn't talk to anybody. So
Why don't we talk about your career a little bit more? What's so with being a hair and makeup artist? What's the best part, and not what's the worst part, but perhaps what's the most challenging part? Because I know from having spent a lot of time around pageants, the early morning call times can be pretty rough. And then, if you have 2 hours worth of makeup to put on beforehand, you're now like waking up at the crack of dawn, 3 or 4, 5 in the morning. So,
mhm.
for your job, what's the best part, and what are maybe some of the less glamorous parts?
My favorite part of my job is just seeing the women's face light up. And it's just not even just older women, it's little girls. I work with women of all ages, and that is the most rewarding part of my job is just seeing people love the skin that they're in and know that they are just naturally beautiful the way that they are, and makeup is just an enhancement to that natural beauty. And it's just my favorite part, getting people to see how happy they are and actually feeling pretty and confident in who they are.
What's the most challenging part?
The most challenging part would definitely be, well, there's multiple things, not just one. One of them is seeing women compare themselves to other people, just because in the beauty industry there is so much comparison with Photoshop these days, filters, filler, Botox, like all of the things, which I'm not against any of those, but that does allow comparison to kind of creep in, and women have false expectations of what they feel like they should look like, rather what a normal natural person does look like. And that's probably one of the like most challenging, but another would probably be like the early call times like you said, or even cancellations, because a lot of people don't look at it as a real job. They think it's just a hobby for me. So like when they cancel, it means nothing to them, even though it's very detrimental to my job and like how I perform.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I ask? I've never sat in a makeup chair before. I think the closest I've had is sitting in the hairdresser's chair. I used to have long hair halfway down my back and had it bleached blonde. So I imagine maybe it's somewhat similar to that. But first question I have is, there's this sort of thing that hairdressers are also sort of stand-in therapists, because when you're sitting in that chair, people just open up and you talk about absolutely everything. Is there the same sort of phenomenon when you're the hair and makeup artist that you just end up being almost like someone's therapist? They open up to you?
Most definitely. One of my clients that I was working on the other day for a pageant, we just started talking, and I started talking about my mama and our relationship and how close I was to her. and she actually had like a similar story with her grandmother, and we just kept talking about both of them and like what all they both had in common, and we both had like a similar story of like our relationship with them and how we lost them and stuff because our grandmothers both actually died of the same thing. So it was just something that we could both relate to with each other, and that was just almost like being able to share your story with each other in a way. And I've had like a bunch of different experiences like that with my clients. So it's rewarding just being able to open up and talk to people.
I was going to say it must be rewarding. Have you ever had any clients sort of shed a couple of tears whilst they were in your chair,
Hmm.
or have you ever shed a couple of tears whilst you're working on someone?
Yes. The other day, like when we were talking about our mamas, both of us started tearing up and crying because they both just meant so much to each of us. So
That must be somewhat inconvenient when you're working on someone's makeup. If they start crying, that must be a separate challenge. In terms of the actual hair and makeup process, I'm curious because I know from speaking to a few women, they're very hesitant sometimes. I think it's mostly with their hair, but also with their makeup. They have a very, obviously, you probably know your face better than anyone else because you spend so
mhm,
much time looking at it. And a lot of pageant girls know what works for them, and they also
mhm,
know what doesn't. And the fear they have sometimes is if they get a hair and makeup artist in, I think they've all been traumatized by having at least one person who comes in, does something they were told not to do. I mean, the worst case is you like go to a hairdresser and they cut your hair a lot shorter than you wanted, and then what are you going to do?
mhm.
You can't reverse it. But I think a lot of them almost have this phobia that the makeup is going to be done wrong, they're going to look terrible, their hair is going to be done wrong. Can you just how do you get around that, and how do you navigate around that? Because and also is that fear justified?
I think that fear is definitely justified because I personally go through that fear. That's why I do my own hair and makeup for pageants. And I actually did my own wedding makeup because obviously that's the most important day of your life.
Yeah.
And I'm just very particular about how my own makeup looks. So I just tend to do it on my own. But I definitely understand where they're coming from because I feel that myself. But at the same time, like this is my job, this is my career, so that's something like I can like help them with and comfort them because, obviously that's not something that they're going to do in their day-to-day life as a normal job. So it's just I forgot. I was sorry.
That's okay, because I just wanted to ask you. So, when someone come, as again, I've never sat in the makeup chair. What's the process that your client goes through when they come to sit? I imagine it's a chair. I don't even know that for sure,
It is.
but I imagine they come and sit in a chair. Is there a process of you speak to them first? Again, like my only experience with the hairdresser, they'll
Mhm.
ask you, "I'm about to have my hair cut after this," and I imagine when I sit down, they'll say, "Oh, what do you want? What do you want me to do? What do you want to look like?" They don't just start in straight away. Is there that same sort of
Mhm.
process when someone comes and sits down in your chair? They say what they want, you give them some ideas, and then you get to work.
Usually, like, I'll ask them if they have, like, inspiration pictures of kind of what they're wanting, and they will show me. And I think another thing that really helps is I post a lot of my work on social media so people can
Mm.
see beforehand, like, what my work looks like, and if that's something that they're really looking for, and whether or not they want to book with me or not. But I have actually had some clients bring me looks that I've never done before. Like I've had a bride that wanted like an all black eyeshadow look because she was having a Halloween wedding. And so it was definitely challenging, but I was able to do it. So my main thing is just making sure the client is happy and they get what they want at the end of the day.
Where did your love of makeup begin? I've spoken to a lot of pageant girls, and a lot of them have this weird sort of like with that Halloween makeup thing. They want to try like weird bloody makeup or zombie makeup for Halloween. I'm just curious for yourself, where did your love or fascination with makeup begin?
My fascination actually, like I said, it began with pageants. I just loved playing in makeup and doing my makeup all the time. And then whenever I got older, my mom started letting me do my own makeup for pageants. But I was actually planning on going to college to become a psychologist because of my anxiety and everything that I had been through because I felt like I could relate to others and their
Yeah.
trauma. But I actually changed my mind right after I graduated high school and just decided to enroll in aesthetic school. And it had just become my passion ever since then. And I love it, and I wouldn't change it in any way because at the same time, I'm kind of getting to be a therapist and a makeup artist.
When's you already said you're particular about your own hair and makeup. When's the last time you allowed someone to do your hair or makeup, or has that never happened?
I've had somebody do my hair and makeup a few times. I actually had a friend of mine, she did my hair for my wedding. I did my makeup, but she did my hair. And then I had a pageant that I was crowning for a few years ago, and that same girl did my hair and makeup. But other than that, I haven't had my hair and makeup done too many times because one of the times that I did, it was absolutely atrocious. So it was a little
What
traumatizing after that.
what is a conversation like when you see your face or you see your hair and it is to use your word atrocious? Is Do you just say thank you and then run away and take it all off? Like what happens there? That must be very awkward.
It is. Younger me, I wouldn't have said anything. I probably just would have been like, "Thank you," and went on with my business. But now, since like I don't have a problem actually talking to people, I would probably just bring it up and be like, "Oh, well, this is not really what I had in mind. Is there a way we can change it to make it look like this?" Because I feel like you should be nice about it, not rude, even if it does look atrocious.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Um, when someone books in a hair and makeup artist, so let's say they're not comfortable with doing it themselves, from your experience, how much easier is, let's say it's a pageant or wedding, let's take both. How much easier is it to bring someone in who can do your hair, do your makeup, and you know they're going to do it well, so you're not worried that they're going to make you look like a clown or something at your own wedding. But
Mhm.
how much time or how much stress does it save that person to bring someone in?
I personally think like it saves you a lot of time and stress. I had a bride, it was I think last year. She had hired somebody else as her hair and makeup artist and she absolutely hated it. And
Yeah.
my mother-in-law was doing her florals for her wedding and she was talking with her about it and she said, "Well, my daughter-in-law does hair and makeup. You should let her just do a trial on you and see how you like
Hmm.
it." And she ended up absolutely loving it. And she told me, she was like, "You literally saved my whole wedding because if not, I would have either not had somebody or it would have looked absolutely terrible and I would have hated it." So I think like that's one of the biggest things is like finding somebody that you actually like their work and that you know is going to do a good job and give you what you want.
It must be I mean, even just thinking about it for myself, it must be pretty anxiety inducing if you are having your wedding, which is the most important day of your life, as you already said, and then your makeup and hair doesn't turn out perfect. So, would you suggest, is there any way that people can know that a hair and makeup artist coming in is going to do a good job? I mean, you've already said you can look at the social media, so that's a good place to start. Is there any other way to sort of know, yes, this is the person I want to work with and not that person?
So one thing I do with all of my brides is I will do a trial before their wedding, and it's usually included in their wedding package. And basically, like, I'll usually schedule it like a month or a couple of months before their wedding, and it's free of charge.
Mm,
They come in, they show me what they want, we do the makeup, they see how they like it, they see if they want anything changed. I'll even tell them, like, go home tonight, see how you like it after it sits on your skin for a few hours, and see if, like, there's anything at all that you want changed about it. And I think that's really helpful, and
mm,
that can save, like, the bride a lot of stress
yeah.
and time, because she already has expectations of what it's going to look like and kind of has an idea of what to expect on her wedding day.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant idea. When I'm sure after all the hair and makeup you've done, there are some things that maybe you wish some clients didn't do. I'm also sure that you have a lot of tips. So let's just start with, is there any advice you would give your clients in terms of what to do and what not to do when they come to sit in your chair? Like, is there a certain thing they do that you go, okay, this makes my job 10 times harder? Or is there something that they can do before they sit in your chair that makes your job 10 times easier? I'm sure there must be some conversation there.
Yes. For makeup, I think that a like clean face works the best. Like, usually moisturize, like, all of your skincare done that morning or whenever that day that I'm doing your makeup. I think that honestly helps so much beforehand. And then another tip, like, when you get a spray tan, getting them to not spray your face, because the spray tan on your face can actually, like, make your skin kind of patchy and the makeup not lay right. So those, I always tell my clients both of those things, like, make sure your skin's very moisturized and no spray tan on your face, because the makeup just doesn't look as good whenever it's all patchy and not laying right.
Do they normally spray tan the face?
Yes, so a lot of spray tan artists, like, when you get a spray tan for your pageant, they'll spray like your whole body, including your face and everything. But I have a lot of clients say, like, they prefer no spray tan on their face, and then I personally prefer no spray tan on my face as well.
Then I'm assuming that when you do the makeup, you can adjust the face using
Hmm.
your skills to make it match.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah, I have like 30, probably 30 something different shades of foundation in my makeup kit, so it's like a fun little science experiment mixing foundation to make the perfect shade for somebody's face.
And that was going to be my next question was, can you give me an idea how big is your makeup kit? Like, what are we talking about? Is it a little case? Is it a suitcase? Is it several suitcases?
I have several bags. I actually have one of those. I think it's like a beach kind of cargo cart. You get them at, like, we have a place over here in the United States. It's called Academy Sports, and that's what I load all of my equipment in whenever I go to
Ah,
events and stuff. But my makeup case probably weighs like 40 pounds, honestly. It's
I
very
think
heavy.
I actually know that brand that you just mentioned because I think I used to get some tennis coaching gear from them. And one of the
Hmm.
things that I got was actually like a basket or a trolley. It kind of looks like your clothes, what you take out to the clothesline, but it's a bit bigger. And that was to
Hmm.
hold like 80, 90, 100 tennis balls and all my coaching equipment. So it sounds like you've got yourself one of those just to wheel out
Hmm.
your entire. That's quite a lot. I mean, what I don't know if it's fair, but what are your absolute must-haves in that kit? Like if you had to pick just a few things, what are the absolute must-haves that you travel with your makeup kit?
I honestly have like any makeup product you could probably think of under the sun. I have probably 40 different lip liner shades, like everything, because I want to make sure I'm prepared for all circumstances. But I love, it's by Sol de Janeiro, and it's their like glow body oil, and I think it makes like bridal skin, especially like the arms and the collarbones and everything, look very like glowy and pretty. And that's one of my favorite products, and it smells very good, so that's another plus to it. But it's one of my must-haves in my kit.
Do you, as a hair and makeup artist, get to claim all of this as a tax deduction? I think that must be one of the best things.
I wish I could claim all of it as a tax deduction. That would be amazing. But most of it is. So that's good. Because I do spend a lot of money on products for my kids. So it's nice to be able to deduct that off my taxes.
I think you probably have more of a justification than most. I mean, it is your job after all. Um, in terms of the going just back to the pageant for a second, you're competing in about a month's time. What whether you take the title or not, what's going to be most important to you in terms of they see you up on stage? How would you like to be remembered?
The most important thing to me with International United Miss is being able to share my story with others and making an impact on others. Just because a lot of people looking at me, if they don't know me, they may not realize what I've been through and my struggles. And I think that just being able to share that with other people is really inspiring. And you meet so many people that you also may not have known go through similar things. So that's just been one of my favorite things about the whole process is being able to share my story and really inspiring others to also share theirs.
Perfect. Just before we go to the final 10 questions, if someone wants to take you on as a hair and makeup artist, I think that's important. How can they do that? What's the best way to get in touch?
Usually by social media. On my Instagram, my business name is Dollface by Madison. Or I have people message me on Facebook too. If it's people that know me personally, they just send me a personal message.
Sure.
But just usually inquiring through social media. And then if it's a bride, I usually go through like a whole contract process and all of that because it's usually a bigger deal and all of that. So.
Sure. Is now kind of the busy season for pageants and weddings coming into summer, just out of interest?
It has been, yes.
Yeah.
And just preparing for internationals too, like mixing with my job, it's been a lot, but I've been very grateful for the opportunity and just the whole experience. So
What do you do in your spare time to relax? I mean, if you have any, it sounds like you may not have much of it, but how do you relax and unwind?
I actually love playing pickleball. Me and my husband play it together a lot, and our whole family actually joins in, and it's just a competitive sport for all of us, but we really love it. I don't know if that's like something where you live or not, but a lot of
It
people over
is.
here love it.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, it's become a worldwide craze, and but it's funny for me as a former tennis player and a tennis coach. I don't know how much you know about it, but there's almost like this very you don't want to talk about pickleball with tennis players because they have
Mhm.
this like pickleball's like a worse version of tennis. I remember Andre Agassi famously said pickleball's where tennis players go to die, but then he started playing a lot of pickleball. I actually, even though I play tennis, I really love pickleball because I think it's more accessible. And I think
Mhm.
different people, different ages, and even like different genders can get together and have a game, much more so than with tennis. Tennis, if you're
Mhm.
better than someone, it can be very sort of not enjoyable. But I've actually found pickleball to be a lot more accessible. So I enjoy it. I think it's a great workout. There's also something quite soothing about the sound of the ball, the donk,
Mhm.
donk, donk, the donk, donk, donk. Do you play outdoors or indoors where you're at?
We play outdoors. There's actually a pickleball court like right down the road from our house, and
Right.
then we have a river house in Alabama, and there's a pickleball court pretty close to it too. So we play at both of those, but we
Wow.
love it.
Okay. Because I was just thinking when I head over to Tennessee, I was thinking about asking if anyone there plays tennis because I love playing tennis. But I think I might ask if anyone plays pickleball. 'Cause I think there
My
might be a bigger
husband, he
chance.
actually, my husband loves playing tennis too. Actually played tennis in high school, and then when we first started playing pickleball, he was like, "I like tennis so much more. Like pickleball's tennis for sissies, basically." But for me personally, like it's just hard for me to hit the ball in tennis with the racket because it's heavier. Like you have to have a
Yeah.
whole lot more arm force behind it and all
Yeah.
that. So pickleball is just easier for me, and that's why we play it instead.
It's tennis for sissies. That's an unadulterated. That's an honest feedback. But that's the thing. Like I don't judge it like that. I think pickleball definitely has its advantages. As I said, it's much
Hmm.
more accessible. Do you play with him, or do you play like doubles, or do you play against him?
Sometimes we'll play singles just like against each other, and then we play doubles with his parents a lot, and
Right.
he'll usually be on his dad's team, and then I'm on his mom's team, and we play against each other.
How competitive does it get?
Oh, it's very, very competitive.
I was going to say I can just imagine it. I mean, you don't have any arguments. It doesn't get too heated, does it?
Sometimes it can.
I
Depends.
Okay. Sounds like that could be an interesting day out for the family. Just before we get to the final 10 questions, Madison, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to or say thanks for supporting you along your journey?
Just my friends and family. They've been my biggest support through this whole journey leading up to internationals, and not even just internationals, but throughout my whole life. And my coach, Brandy Jo Middleton, she has helped me tremendously throughout this whole journey and being able to share my story with others. So just both of them.
Perfect. All right. Well, let's close out with our usual 10 questions. Number one, what is your favorite word?
My favorite word. So there's actually a phrase, and my husband, he always laughs at me, but every time we go to Costco, it's so busy, and I'll say it's literally a zoo in here, and he's like, I, he's like, why do you say that? But it's probably one of my favorite phrases, just because like, if something's like super chaotic or got a lot going on or a lot of people, I usually just say like it's a zoo in here. So
Wonder, is that a southern saying? I have a few southern friends and they say things that I understand the words, but I've never heard them combined in that way. Is that a southern saying?
probably, I think I've heard other people around the South say it before, but it's
Right. Okay. I'll have to remember that one. Number two, what is your least favorite word?
I don't like the word moist. It makes me cringe. It's just I feel like there's so many other words you could use besides that word, and I hate it. It's definitely my least favorite word.
Not to take exception with you, but can I just ask, how do you describe a delicious cake then? When it's not
I
dry,
feel
because you
like
don't want a dry
yeah,
cake.
I feel like under that circumstance, like it would be
Okay.
okay, but like if you're describing like how it feels outside or something like that, I feel like you could just use damp or humid
Yep.
or something else instead.
It's funny, if you watch this back, you should see the expression on your face even when you're using the word. I've had this. Moist is actually the most popular answer to that question, and almost every person who says it has this really look of disgust on their face or very uncomfortable, even when they're saying it. It's really quite funny. Number three, in life, what gets you excited or what turns you on?
Um, I think what makes me most excited is just like new opportunities and just new experiences. I like traveling to new places and just meeting new people and just really, I guess, building new relationships, especially like when I get to travel for work a lot. It's one of my favorite things is getting to meet the new people and seeing new places that I haven't already seen.
What about what turns you off?
I think people that are rude or negative for no reason. I think that you could just be nice to everybody that you meet because you truly don't know what other people are going through. So I just, I strongly dislike people who are mean for no reason.
What sound or noise do you love?
Let's see. I like the sound of um, my air purifier at nighttime. It's actually what helps me sleep because I like white noise, so that's probably one of my favorite sounds. It's just very calming to me and it just blocks out like just the silence, I guess.
Is that like a low pitched humming sound, or does it sound like a fan?
It's not necessarily like a fan. It's kind of like you said, almost like a lower pitch, kind of just humming, like
Right.
very, almost like just like a natural breeze kind of sound.
All right. Okay. I have a white noise machine next to my bed and I can't sleep without it. So I was just curious. There's all these different, there's white noise, brown noise, yellow noise, or I don't know, all,
Hmm.
green noise, all sorts of colored noises now. So that's what sound or noise you love. What about what sound or noise do you hate?
I hate the sound of like when a fork scrapes a plate and it's like that screeching sound. It's almost like nails on a chalkboard to me, and I hate it. Like it makes my skin crawl.
Yeah. That one when you slip on the plate and the fork or the knife goes along the best china. Yep, that noise. I think we've all been there. Number seven, if you could have any superpower, what would you pick and why?
I would like to just be invisible because I would like to be in like certain places just to hear certain conversations or even just to see stuff that goes on whenever I'm not somewhere, or just really to just be able to engage in the room and see what's going on without actually being there and being visible.
What job other than your own would you most like to attempt?
I actually, whenever I was little, I always told my mom I wanted to be a fashion designer, and I still would love to do that because I just love creating things and everything that goes into fashion, like the different types of fabrics and looks and all of that. So I would definitely probably want to be a fashion designer.
What job would you definitely not like to attempt?
Probably a police officer because my brother's one and his job is very, very hard. And I'm
Mm,
also a lot more sensitive than he is. So I probably wouldn't be able to deal with the people as well as he does.
that's fair enough. Final question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I think that every other Christian would agree with this, but we all want to hear, well done, good and faithful servant. Like, that's the number one thing that you want to hear at the end of your life is that you did what you were supposed to and you're where you're supposed to be.
Perfect. I lied. Let me just slip in one more question. You remember that soft drink that I messaged you about, and you said that
The sun
you're.
job. Yeah.
Can you just tell me more about that? Because I'm still not sure I understand it. So this is a soft drink, and like your city or your state is like the home of it or something.
Hmm.
So tell me what is it?
So
Sundrop.
my hometown is Pulaski, Tennessee. I live in the town over from that town now, but Pulaski manufactures and bottles Sundrop, and so it's actually known as like the birthplace of Sundrop. And it's just like a very citrusy soda. Um, a lot of people love it. I like it. I'm not a huge fan of it. I'll drink it, but it's not my favorite. I prefer Coke or Dr. Pepper over Sundrop. But if you get the one in the glass bottle, it actually has like pieces of like actual citrus and stuff in
Wow.
it, and it's very good, but still not my
Okay.
favorite.
It's been a long time since I had a soft drink in an actual glass bottle. Normally it's all cans or plastic bottles in this day and age,
Hmm.
but I feel like it's something I'll have to try when I'm over there. Anyway,
Most definitely.
Madison, that's it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It was so nice talking with you.
And I'll keep you on the line for just a sec whilst I hang out with the audience. But thanks to everyone for watching or listening, and we will speak